Have you played Pick 6 from DraftKings yet? What are you waiting for? You better get on it. The playoffs are here and time is running out. As the official daily fantasy sports partner of the NFL, DraftKings does fantasy sports like no one else. Play for better payouts on Pick 6. It's super easy to get started. Select two or more players, choose if they'll have more or less of a stat like touchdowns, yardage, sacks, and more. Pick 6 is available in most states including Missouri, California, Texas, Georgia, and more. And DraftKings is making it even sweeter for the first timers. New Pick 6 customers play $5, get $50 in Pick 6 credits. Win more cash on Pick 6. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to play $5, get $50 in Pick 6 credits. Only on DraftKings Pick 6. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 plus. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 is not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. One per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick 6 credits that expire in 30 days. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
Let's move on and let's chat a little bit about the future. Let's talk about where this Canadiens team is headed, kind of our predictions for the upcoming games in the week. So if I'm not mistaken, actually I don't have it in front of me, so that's a little awkward, but I know that they play against the Minnesota Wild. I'm just forgetting the other team.
They play the Jets.
The Jets and then the Wild, correct?
Yes, correct. So it's New Jersey Saturday. I'm also pulling it up here too. Yeah, so New Jersey Saturday and then Tuesday against the Jets and the Wild on Thursday. I'm sure we'll come back after the Wild game. So
yeah, we're going to come back after the Wild game.
Bit of a shorter week in terms of games, not as many as the past time we were here, but
3-game week, but Anaheim's on Sunday, so
yeah, we're going on a bit of a West Coast trip after this, or not a trip because we play the Jets and the Wild at home, but after that,
I'll put it up on the screen for us here.
Yeah, not going to say that these are insignificant games, but if you're going to lose to any team, better it be the West than the East, right? So I don't know if we want to do some.
Tomorrow night's game is just so important. So important.
I think every game's important, honestly.
Right. You're right. But again, it's in division there. It's in conference. But again, I just find the games in the East are also, I mean, I guess New Jersey has their spot locked up realistically, but
hey, you never know. You never know. But yeah, so New Jersey, Winnipeg, Minnesota. I don't know. What do you want to talk about these games?
I mean, look, let's give our predictions. Let's give it. So I predicted a win against New Jersey. You predicted a win against New Jersey. Winnipeg, Minnesota. What do you have?
I'm going to say win against Winnipeg, loss against Minnesota. Minnesota's actually been struggling, but they got Kaprizov back. I'm sure they're going to click again after him missing a month. So I'm going to say Minnesota gets the best of the Canadiens, but I say Montreal wins at home. I think they're going to respond against the Devils, and I think this team is too good to just go back to their old ways every second game. So not saying that it could be a close loss, but I think the Habs come back with 2 wins in a row after that poor loss against Detroit, and then lose a tight one to Minnesota.
Okay. I don't think that they lose a game this week. I don't think that they lose
a
game. They beat New Jersey, they beat Winnipeg, they beat Minnesota. I think the best part about this team is that they've proven that they can literally be in it with any team. And the funniest part about it, Liam, is that you could probably say the same for last year, despite finishing 5th to last, because every game was a 1-goal game. Every single game was a 1-goal game. Their goal differential wasn't great. Granted, they were a bottom 5 team, but where they were in the standings versus their goal differential was pretty funny to look at, considering that they were losing so many games, yet losing games by 1. So I think this year, and again, we've talked about the impacts of Laine, the impacts of Carrier. I find it so interesting that Goulet and Carrier, I know plus minus is whatever, but amidst a a 5-game stretch where most of these guys are either at 0, -1, maybe +1, +2. Like the Gooley Carrier pairing was +6.
It's actually insane. They've been playing really well together. All their underlying numbers are really good as well. I think Carrier was just an unbelievable ad. He does everything so well. And we've talked about it before, but he's that missing piece that the Canadians need. A right-handed D with experience, has a strong defensive game, but also shows he's able to produce on offense with more points in this stint with the Canadians than he did all season with Nashville. I think it's like 10 points with the Habs and 7 with Nashville in 28 games. So Carey's been great. I love it. I think Jacky has taken a step. And just going back to Gooley quickly, at the start of the season, I said Gooley can come out of this year as a number 1 D-man. And I think maybe not the number 1 D-man, but he's definitely improved a lot. And I think obviously you can't compare a year-to-year difference from Hudson, but comparing all the D-men on this team, I think Gooley's taken the biggest step in terms of his development from last year to this year.
I think, and I said it on this podcast before, I think it's purely because he's playing on the side that he should have been playing on all along. And I think that that's a huge indicator of his success. Now, here's my thing. I think that Gooley on a championship team, I don't even know if this is bold. I feel like he should be the third, if not the second. Like second is pushing it in my opinion. Like, look, the number 1 defenseman, I think defensively, he's probably the best defenseman on our current team. Defensively. You could argue Carrier.
Mm-hmm.
You could argue Savard. But like Gooley's skating is way better than those guys. And I think that defensively, he's improved his game significantly. However, I think that the NHL has gone towards just being so offensive that a guy like Lane Hudson is probably, or a guy like Quinn Hughes or Cale Makar, I'm not putting them in the same category in terms of skill. I'm just saying in terms of their play style. It just goes to show that those are the guys that you need to be at the number 1 spot, because Gooley can undoubtedly benefit from being on a power play 1 by just feeding Line or Caufield, whatever, and getting the assist. But do I think that he's the game changer that the Canadians would need to be in a competing spot? No. But that's why I think that he'd be the perfect number 3 on a championship team. I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah, no, I think just being young in itself, he's going to continue to develop. And I think just taking that step from last year to this year, like I said, it's been huge. And you can argue that sometimes the best defense is offense, and it works both ways. Sometimes your best offense is defense. But just in terms of Lane Hudson, when you're spending more time in the offensive zone, that means that they're not in your defensive zone creating chances. And I think that's the reason why the Canadians have been so good recently, is that they, I guess not against Detroit, but they're limiting these high scoring chances by producing offensively. One thing I want to get into, completely changing the topic, just some recent news that Suzuki and Matheson are the injury replacements for the Four Nations Team Canada, for Team Canada. So if for whatever reason somebody got injured, there was a Chiarelli scare the other day. He left the game for a little bit, but he ended up coming back. But maybe we do see one of Nick Suzuki or Mike Matheson in a Canada sweater. And all that to say is bringing me to the point that how in the world is Cole Caufield not on that team? If you're able to pull up Team USA's lines, I just want to go over it quickly, and maybe we can give our 2 cents on where we think Cole Caufield could have fit on that team, because 24 goals, point per game player, basically. And you're telling me Chris Kreider, Brock Nelson, and the diva JT Miller are all on this team? You're telling me there's not going to be locker room issues? Come on, bring Cole onto the team. Guy's going to be an animal. He's going to bring this team together. So obviously there's the top players, Kachuk, Eichel.
Sorry, I don't have it by line, but I have
it's okay. But you can just take a look at this team and question some of these choices. Brock Nelson in 2025 is on Team USA. Okay, sure. Chris Kreider, 2025, he's on Team USA. Okay, sure. But you're telling me that the second highest American goal scorer in the NHL right now is not on this team?
Yeah, it's baffling. It's baffling. And can I say something? My mindset has changed so much on the idea of leaving Cole Caufield off this roster. And I think I've been I've had this conversation with a few people, including yourself, and I've always said to myself, I'm like, well, you know what? The truth is that if you're a team that lacks in certain areas, like for example, if when you're building a team, an NHL team, the third or fourth line, you're more than okay to have a guy like Jake Evans or Armia on it, whatever the case may be. Now, in a Four Nations tournament, the same, in this case, the same could be said. However, my mind has changed in the direction of it's a short tournament. You need goal scoring. Take the skill. I don't think the idea of putting Brock Nelson as that fourth line center guy who's going to win you clutch faceoffs down the stretch is going to be the deciding factor. We've seen it with teams like the Canadian World Junior team, where they left off Beckett Seneca, they left off Zane Perek, they left off Carter Yakimchuk, they left off, well, Tidge was hurt, but I think there's another, thank you, Michael Misa. The fact that those guys were left off for the purpose of creating a team which they had thought structurally was built properly, just to get bounced in the first round, goes to show that you don't leave talent off a roster, especially in a short tournament. An 82-game season with 4 rounds of playoffs, I get that. You're going to need a guy like Jake Evans, but come on. I mean, I'm not saying that Cole Caufield could play center over Brock Nelson, but I'm saying that how do you even justify it?
But why? I don't understand. I think this also goes for Nick Suzuki. Like, why did they have to announce these rosters so early? Because so much has changed since they announced these rosters. Sam Bennett was on an absolute heater, like the best heater of his career, and he makes the team, obviously because he was playing over point per game. But since then, he's had like 5 points. So Nick Suzuki is a point per game player. He's a two-way player, defensively amazing, plays PK, plays power play. Obviously, they wouldn't need him on the power play, but it's questionable moves by the NHL because they're kind of ruining, or teams are just banking on the fact that the players that made this team are going to continue their streaks. And I think there was a lot of players that were on hot streaks at the time that made teams.
Based at the end of the day, it's politically based because they even said that with Suzuki, one of the biggest things was that he had rejected to play for the national team in the past. So we're going to leave him off. Now, I mean, I look at this team, and if you're watching on YouTube, obviously you see the lines, and we'll read them out just for fun. These are obviously projected lines, not official lines, but you have Sam Reinhart, Connor McDavid, Nathan McKinnon, Hagel, Point, Marner, Marchand, Crosby, Stone, Jarvis, Sorelli, Konechny, with Sam Bennett as a scratch. How does Sam Bennett make this team?
It's crazy because Chiarelli is a better version of Sam Bennett, right? And I'm a fan of that top 9. I think Hagel deserved a spot this year. I mean, John Cooper is the coach, so maybe he gets a bit of a bump there, but I think he's deserved a spot. He's continued his well play throughout this whole year. But like, again, Seth Jarvis has been all right. He brings something to the team, but is he really a fourth liner? Like, you can tell that they're trying to build a team with a gritty fourth line. You know, you got Travis Konechny, which I love that pick, by the way, because I think he's a very underrated player. But you got Chiarelli and you got Bennett there, and even Mark Stone is a big defensive presence, and obviously Crosby. But it's like, how does Nick Suzuki not make this team? And I think the same goes for Team USA, and I think it's even worse for Team USA because you can make your lines however you want. But I do see a world where Cole Caufield can fit somehow in a top 6 role or even a top 9 role, because you got guys like, there we go, this is perfect. But look, you got Matt Boldy, Trocheck, maybe Gensel is in a fourth liner, but you're telling me JT Miller right now deserves to be on a first line? You're telling me that Brady Tkachuk, who hasn't had a point in 9 games, deserves a spot? Like Kreider, same thing, same story. So I think there were a lot of questionable moves for this Team USA forward lineup.
What about Tage Thompson, by the way?
Tage Thompson, Jason Robertson, who's been one of the hottest players in the NHL, but they leave him out because he had a poor start of the season, and that's when they selected the team. So I understand that there's planning that has to happen, but it just seemed like it was a little, what's the word? They decided way too early is what I'm trying to say. And they left out guys like Cole Caufield, who's the second leader in goals for Americans this season.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around it. And the truth is that it's not for many guys on this list. I think that ultimately, Trocheck, not really going to complain about that pick. Doesn't really bother me that much. The only ones plural that bother me are Kreider and Brock Nelson. I mean, I'm not gonna. I know it's recency bias, but Kreider Kreider was literally a healthy scratch on his respective team at some point in the season. So to say that he merits being on Team USA that has where you leave off, like we mentioned 8 times already, Caufield, Tage Thompson, and company, wouldn't be my selection. Now, look, there's, like you said, so many different ideologies go into this. I think that we'll leave it at that. But I mean, I wanted to talk a little bit about the goalie situation for Canada.
Yeah.
I mean, that is nuts to me.
Let me just tell you a record right now. Actually, you know what? I need to do something really quick. I need to look up the records of all the Canadian goalies right now, and then I'll tell you another goalie record, and you're going to take a guess whose record belongs to who, okay? So
that's a fun game.
Yeah.
I'm going to put it up on the screen. These are the 3 goalies, by the way.
Yeah. So give me 1 second. I'm getting all of these records, and we're going to play a little game, and you're going to guess who's on the team and who's not on the team. Maybe I should add in a couple more to make it even more confusing.
Yeah, do it. Let's see. I mean, I can probably have a half decent guess based off of.
For sure. And you'll know one of them. You'll definitely know 2 of them. Okay, well, let's start with these. 17, 17, and 3 made this team.
That's Monty.
That is Samuel Montembeault. Hold on. Let me say the next one. Sammy Montembeault, 17, 17, and 3. This is also another goalie on the team. 13, 17, and 3.
That's going to be Jordan Binnington.
Jordan Binnington, our starting goalie. 13, 17, and 3. Next. 18, 8, and 3.
I guess that's... Well, it's another guy on the team, so it's got to be Aiden Hill.
That is Aiden Hill. 901 save percentage belongs to Aiden Hill.
I mean, he gets carried by Vegas in general.
898 belongs to Jordan Binnington. Samuel Montembeault has an 899. And then let me just tell you the next one. It would have been good if we kind of prepared for this, but 22, 2, and 3.
22, 2, and 3?
Yeah.
22, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
Canadian goalie.
Yep.
I feel like Blackwood's lost more games than 2.
Yep.
So it's not Blackwood.
It is not Blackwood.
It's 22, not Darcy Kemper.
Nope. 22, 2, and 3 with a 925 and a 209. I'm surprised you don't know
Logan Thompson.
Yeah.
Yes, you're right. Sorry, I was blanking for a second. That's ridiculous. I was just, that is nuts. I forgot how good of a wagon they were, and I guess that slipped my mind when you said only 2 losses. I honestly thought that Logan Thompson had more losses than that, but that's nuts.
Two regulation losses. And then I'll just throw this one in, why not? With his new team, you mentioned it, Mackenzie Blackwood, 9-4-2 with a 925 and a 204.
That's on the season, or that's just with Colorado?
That's just with Colorado. But he was 6-9-3 with the Sharks.
Which is pretty impressive in itself.
Which is pretty impressive. Yeah, exactly. And like you said, if I'm as much as I love Montembeault, but if we're going by statistics, your goalie needs to be Logan Thompson, your backup needs to be Mackenzie Blackwood, and your third needs to be Darcy Kemper. Like, it cannot be that hard of a decision.
I mean, even Darcy Kemper's had an unbelievable season. I mean, maybe not unbelievable, but I think he's had an actually.
I think he's been really good. Really good.
He has he's here we go, 14-4-5 with a 924 and a 2.01 GAA.
Like, what is going on in that Canadian meeting when they're discussing, let's like, it makes no sense.
And you want to know what the funniest part about all this is that when the Canadian roster was made, the defensive players they took were almost a result of the goalies they took. So what I'm saying by that is that they knew that their goalies weren't that strong. So obviously you're going to take the likes of Makar and so on and so forth. But they went more defensively defensive heavy.
Yeah.
And they did that because they couldn't trust their goalies. Yet you have 3 guys that are sitting there with plus records with above 900, comfortably above 900 save percentages. And now
920.
Exactly. All 3.
All 3. And yeah, let's not take the hottest goal in the NHL right now in Logan Thompson. Let's let's not take one of the best goalies in the last 2 years in terms of save percentage in Mackenzie Blackwood. And yeah, why not? Let's not take Darcy Kemper either, who's having an
proven in this
unbelievable
league.
year.
He's
Yeah.
34 years old. He's played. I'm sure. I think he was on an international team at some point. I don't know if he started, but
He
I
must
think
have
he was on a
been.
roster. I mean,
It just it doesn't make sense.
look, we know we're not delusional. We're not being naive. We know that the international stage is a different stage, but these picks don't make all that much sense. And like we said with the Canadian World Junior team, we could see a world where these decisions have negative effects on the team in the long run in such a short tournament. You're going to need a goalie to get hot, and the truth is that the three goalies that they have on their roster have not been hot.
No.
And on the other side of things, the three goalies that we mentioned, Kemper, Blackwood, and Logan Thompson, have been debatably some of the hotter goalies in the league. So what are we doing here?
And then
What are we doing?
you have to take a look at the other teams as well. And obviously, the U.S. has the best goalie in Connor Hellebuck. Sweden, they won't have Markstrom anymore, but they have Ullmark, who's been
Probably Philip Gustafsson as well, who hasn't been very good.
exactly. But again, he had a good start. I think Ullmark is amazing, like literally one of the best goalies in the NHL. So he's not talked about enough. And then Finland has UC Saros and Ukko, who's had his moments, but UC is going to carry that load. And I think just looking at Canada, it's ridiculous that they couldn't even select a guy with a 905 save percentage. Like, come on.
And just to put it out there for you, I think this is so funny that Darcy Kemper, so Hellebuck first in the league in GAA, Darcy Kemper second, Logan Thompson third. Then if you want to go to save percentage, Logan Thompson 3, Darcy Kemper 4, Mackenzie Blackwood 6. The only two guys above Logan Thompson, Hellebuck, who could honestly be unanimous MVP. Like, I don't even want to
Yeah.
He's ridiculous. We'll talk about that
Insane.
maybe next episode. We'll do
We should.
we'll do some predictions for that stuff. But Stolars is tied for 1, but the truth is he's only played 17 games.
Mhm.
So, I mean, come on. Like, it honestly, it's I had a friend text me and he's like, he doesn't know, like, he's not, following hockey as much as maybe we do. And he said, can you explain this? I'm like, no. I'm like, I cannot explain why these guys were left off the roster. I literally have no, I have no clue. Like, it makes zero sense to me.
Who's the GM? Is it? It's not Thornton, right? That was for like the whatever the one during the World Juniors, that other tournament.
Don Sweeney.
Is it the guy who also let Ullmark walk?
and the guy who's also picked maybe horribly in the last decade for the Bruins. Horribly.
Was that that was Chiarelli, right? Wasn't that Chiarelli?
No, that was with
Edmonton.
Edmonton, I think. Yeah. Yikes.
Like, what are we doing? What are we doing here? It makes no sense. But
anyway, we'll leave it at that. The tournament is in mid-February, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yep.
So that will be exciting. We'll do a bit of coverage on that. I think, like we've talked about the rosters, I think the next step is to probably just look at the game by game and okay, we'll leave it at this. Right now we're January 23rd, lost
24th.
Prediction on the Four Nations. Give me, I don't know how it's going to work. It's going to be a round robin and then just a semi and a final.
Not even. So it's each team plays each other once. Whoever has the two best records plays in a final. That's it.
Okay. So based off of that, who are your finalists and who's your winner?
I mean, I gotta pledge allegiance to my country, but I'm gonna be brutally honest. I think Sweden is gonna do some damage. I think overall they have one of the, I mean, they're all deep teams, but Sweden has tons of great forwards, tons of great D, and a very good goalie who, I'm talking about Ullmark or Gustafsson. One can take over for the other if one game doesn't go well. So I like Sweden to make the finals, and I like Canada to make the finals. I think the U.S., they've had some success, but on the world stage, not counting the World Juniors, they haven't been very good. And I think they're going to crumble a little bit. And I think Finland has great players. Shout out to Patty Laine, shout out to Lehkonen. But I think they're the weakest team. Armia, it's true. Oh my God. That's going to be fun to watch. But I think their D-core is not even arguably the worst. It is the worst. And I think although Saros is a great goalie, and I strongly believe he's one of the best goalies in the NHL, he hasn't been outstanding, and I don't know if Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen is going to be able to take over at all. So I think they're the weakest team. I don't think they'll win a game, actually. I don't think they're strong enough to win a game. But
I
like
look at their roster. I don't love it.
Yeah, I mean, I like their forwards. They got great forwards, but
Solid forwards, but
it
not
falls
enough
off
to compete. To be honest, look, my finals very simple, very straightforward. I have Canada, US. I do think that your point is very, very valid on the US kind of not being amazing on the international stage, but I think that that's going to unfortunately, I say that unfortunately in their direction, and I think that they would beat Canada. I think that they would probably wipe the floor with Canada. Unfortunately, we can relate it back to the fact that they don't have the goaltending. Their defense is outside of who's Canada's defense? Makar, Travis Sanheim, Pietrangelo.
It's Makar, Taves, Pietrangelo, Theodore. They also have Hannafin. They have Parayko and Sanheim.
Look, solid decor.
Yeah,
solid decor. I don't know. I'm scared of the US.
I'm scared of the US too. I think US has a great chance of beating Canada, but I don't think the US. I mean, their decor is the best out of everyone, and their goalies are the best. So it's going to be tight. It's going to be between
their forward core. Aside from leaving Caufield and Thompson off, is just, if you want to call them holes, like Brock Nelson, and Kreider. But other than that, like they literally have Matthews, both Kachuk brothers, Jack Eichel. Like I'm missing some big names here. Like
Hughes,
Jack Hughes,
Connor,
Hughes.
Connor's been great. But like the thing is, I look at Team Canada, and then there are some questionable players within that lineup. But then you throw on Sidney Crosby against the other team's third line, and it's like, wow, that's really going to happen. Sidney Crosby is our third best center because we have Connor McDavid and Nathan McKinnon. So that's how I think the Team Canada is going to win some games. I think Canada wins it. I think there's you go back to the World Cup, they dominated. But one thing I want to ask you is, if they had like a Team Europe, how do you think they would match up against the other teams? And I'm saying this involves Germany with Draisaitl, Stützle, Czechia with Pasta, Slovenia. I know they have one player, but all the other countries, so that all the,
I think you have
Yossi.
Yeah.
How do you think a team like that matches up? And also, I'm going to ask you a Team North America, so under 23.
Under 23. Okay, that's interesting. I mean, matches up for Europe. I think that, are we including Russia?
No,
Russia. Okay, fine.
Russia would be its own team in itself. I think they'd be really good.
No, that's very fair. I mean, I think Europe would fend pretty well. They might be better than a Finland team.
Yeah,
I don't think they'd be better than the other three personally.
That's fair.
I mean, I think you have the bulk of the goalies in Russia. You have the bulk of the goalies in the US, and you have a few littered out in Canada, Finland, and Sweden. So I don't think that they would do any damage on the goalie front in Europe. I'm obviously I'd have to
they have Dostal is Czech. I'm trying to. Merzlikins is Latvian.
I think that they might, I think if you add them to the tournament and make it a 5-team tournament, they'd maybe be the 4th or 5th best team. I don't think it'd be anything to write home about. The North American team under 23, does that excludes the players that are already on rosters, correct?
They would have to be on. It would be Canadian or a North American team, right? So Canada, USA, so 23 and under. So Caufield would make that team, right?
Right, but my question is that would trying to think Bedard would be on that team, Celebrini would be on that team.
Yeah.
Okay.
But if you look at a list of 23-year-old players, they're actually they're established players in the NHL, like Boldy. You would have to take those players
they've been in
off.
the league for 4 years.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. So
I think, don't know where they would rank. I'd probably put them in that, if we're making it a 6th team, I'd probably put them in that 4, 5, 6 spot. I don't exactly know. I think that the 3 top, I think that Canada, US, Sweden, to me, are dangerous, dominant. Now, obviously implications by changing the criteria with the U23, not exactly sure how that would go. I think that at the end of the day, in these tournaments, as much as it kind of goes against the point that I made earlier on, but you are going to benefit from a bit of experience, a
Yeah,
bit of
for sure.
international play experience. So that's why I have those 3 teams first. But the U23 would be fun to create that roster, see what that would look like.
We actually should. I was thinking we should make a U23 roster and maybe even take a look at Europe because I think they could actually do damage.
Yeah.
Like Draisaitl Pasta, come on, that's a crazy duo. I don't even think Finland has Barkov, Rantanen, and Aho, but I think they'd bode well, and I'm disappointed that those guys aren't invited when they're some of the best players in the league.
No, I agree. I think it's gonna be really fun to watch. I think it's gonna be something fun to monitor.
Yeah,
I think
for sure. We'll pump
keep it
out
at
some
that.
content.
And let us know what you guys think about the rosters, the omissions, the people that shouldn't have been selected, and kind of everything in between. But thanks so much for listening to episode 96 of the Habs Culture podcast. We will be back next week. So make sure to give it a listen, a thumbs up, follow us on all socials, and we'll speak to you guys.